Welcome to the Vitamin Mentality Podcast. I'm your host, Angel Munro. We're talking all things health and wellness, and we're looking at ways to live a vital life. Short disclaimer, this is not intended as medical advice. This is just for general purposes only. So this week, we're going to have a look at nutraceuticals and supplements. We're going to put them under the spotlight. We're going to look at common supplements that vegetarians and vegans need and, what's the best way to do that. Pitfalls of single nutrients, fortification, and whole food supplements. So I am a lifelong vegetarian. I've never eaten red meat before. I was brought up that way and I just have continued it on. I eat a little bit of seafood now in the last, I don't know, 5 or so years, maybe more. Maybe it's more like 10, but even in the last few years, it's increased a little bit more. I've tried chicken once, I think. And yeah, so this is coming from someone who really hasn't liked meat, but you're going to hear from me why I think that it's almost impossible to supplement some of these things without having some animal products. Yeah. And I'm also a clinical nutritionist trained to prescribe supplements. And I did prescribe supplements when I first started practicing, and it took me a few years of seeing some of the big pitfalls, and it took me a good few years to really understand, till I worked out for myself and did the research to work out that all of the supplements, unless they're specifically whole food supplements, they have gone through some kind of chemical extraction, or often a lot of chemical extraction. And that was never discussed. It still isn't in colleges for naturopathy and functional medicine and nutrition. And so a lot of what I'm saying is definitely going against what the majority of people in my profession would be saying. So, and I just want to say, I'm aware. But, our job here on the planet, I reckon, is to evolve and move and change. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing. So let's look at vegetarian and veganism first. So the 3 major nutrients that they can be deficient in is zinc, B12, and zinc, B12, and iron. Also vitamin A, also omega-3s, so from fish oil. B12 doesn't really exist in plant foods at all. There are some in certain things like seaweed and tempeh, but it's a B12 analog, and there's kind of confusion on whether people say different things, but it doesn't behave the same way as B12 from meat. You need B12 for neurological function. It's very hard to tell if there's a deficiency. And B12 supplementation long-term supplementation does affect the gut microbiome, and the microbiome is in control. Well, not in control is not the right word, but influences every system in our body. We're basically made up of proteins, water, and bacteria. So damaging our bacterial environment is really a big deal. And there's no way around that. That's what happens when you take B12 for a long time. And you cannot, like I said, you cannot get it from food. There is some production of B12 in the body, in the gut, but it's possible to tell which person is going to be, making enough B12. And, you hear people who live off fruit for their entire lives, or, thrive off really extreme diets, and I'm not refuting that can happen, but most people with busy lives and lots of responsibility, and especially kids that are growing, women who are growing babies, or anyone who has a lot to do in their life, they generally need most food groups and will get deficient if they're not getting them. So I'm not talking about those occasional people who can get away with doing extreme things and thrive. Usually those people, like I said, have a spiritual practice and don't have to do the daily grind. I'm talking about the majority here. Most people need B12 and they cannot not get it from animal products. There are some in things like eggs, a little bit in dairy, I think. There's something that scientists call meat factor, and they associate this with B12, iron, and zinc. And even people who have a little bit of animal products, their uptake from other foods is increased because there's something about animal products that help uptake these nutrients that are generally in animal products. Meaning, so if I have a little bit of eggs even, and the rest of my food is really plant-based, it's still going to increase my uptake of these other nutrients because I've had some animal products. And there's another thing that scientists call the food matrix, and they're both kind of in the same realm, where they know that it's impossible to mirror the therapeutic effect of foods. We cannot measure or quantify all the other accessory nutrients that help us uptake nutrients. For instance, say with vitamin C, a company might try and put bioflavonoids and all other things for you to uptake that vitamin C, make it more bioavailable, but it will never mirror what the food matrix of what, say, is in orange. And so this is well understood that this is a pitfall that can't be filled. Pretty interesting. So when we look at iron, again, it is more bioavailable in animal products. It is in plant products, but it's much harder to absorb. It's in a different form. We have to transform it in the body, and it's not always enough. Taking iron from supplemental form, it's well known in the literature that the best maximum dose actually is 24 milligrams every 2 days. Anything more than that inflames the liver. Most GPs are out there prescribing in the hundreds of milligrams a day. And it's too inflammatory to the liver. The liver can't uptake it, leads to inflammation in the rest of the body. Lots of people will, in this day and age, will have an inflamed liver, whether it's from alcohol or what products they're using on their body, or stress, or I could reel off a million pharmaceuticals, pesticides. I could reel off a million things that would cause the liver to be inflamed. The more inflamed it is, the less likely it is to uptake iron. This does not happen when it's from food. This is just from supplemental form. So it really doesn't make sense to even bother trying to take it from a lab-made iron supplement when you could take it from something like the beef liver capsules, which you can get organic ones, which I sell on the website, and I'll talk about those in a little bit more. So iron also competes with other minerals like zinc. Again, in natural form, it's usually, if you get it from food, it usually has those other nutrients with it. But taken on its own like that, it will compete and it will make you deficient in something else. So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Zinc, same kind of deal as iron. It's in food. It's in lots of plant foods, but when it's in plant foods, there's always phytic acid that's attached to it. You can kind of get rid of it by cooking processes and soaking and stuff. I did a whole podcast on zinc a few weeks ago, so go and have a listen to that. Taking zinc in supplemental form competes with magnesium, competes with calcium, competes with copper, competes with iron. Again, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Zinc is super important though. And yeah, much better to try and get it out of animal foods, or if you don't eat animal foods like me, animal-based supplements. They're just, yeah, to me, it's just not worth taking those other supplements. And I certainly don't take them, and I don't prescribe them anymore. And this is coming from someone who sometimes needs to have it. It just seems that when we try and isolate something from nature, it never works out. So I don't know why we keep trying. It's crazy. Magnesium, any of the minerals, they compete with each other. Taking magnesium internally too often causes havoc with people's digestive system, and I love using it topically as a spray, or in a bath with magnesium chloride or Epsom salts. You can get magnesium as a liquid form inhibition, which actually comes from like saltwater sources, and it has a whole lot of other minerals with it, and that's the best way to take it if you're going to take it internally. But personally, for me, and I've seen it do it to countless people, it can make you queasy, yeah, especially on an empty stomach. So I always love taking it topically. That way it's coming straight into the bloodstream, and yeah, it's the best way to take it. Calcium's the same. All of the minerals are the same. Take them on its own. Calcium will compete with magnesium. Take magnesium on its own. Magnesium will compete with calcium. So much better to try and get it from food sources or whole food supplements. Vitamin C, I'm not going to get too into vitamins, but the minerals you can see with the naked eye. Vitamins go through a pretty crazy isolation process, and it's hard to know what you're left if you're just left with artifacts at the end of it. I'll put a link into the show notes about the isolation of vitamin C, and they put lead in it, and then acetate petroleum like a million times, and they dry it and they put more chemicals on it. I mean, it's crazy. There's no way that what you're left with mirrors what you find in an orange. And like I said before, I'm talking about the food matrix. Yeah, you can't replicate it, and you certainly can't replicate it with lead and acetate. So this is how these supplements are made. It shocked me because I loved vitamin C. And again, not to say that doesn't give a result, but I don't want to take anything that's meant to be therapeutic that's also damaging me at the same time. I think it's silly. Yeah, there's a really good biochemist called Harold Hellman. He's not alive anymore, but he wrote about biology. He was a major critic of biology, and a lot of biology, it is done in that way where they try and take something from the body or take something from nature. They add a lot of chemicals to it and zap it and do all kinds of crazy things to it, look under a microscope, and you don't know if what you're seeing is an artifact or if it reflects what is in the body. And my guess is it's not what it looks like in the body. So I think modern biochemistry has a lot to answer for, actually, and we just always do better if we just go with nature. So like I said, I want to talk about fortification. Fortification is when they add certain nutrients as a public health measure into foods. Iodine in salt is a good example. Folic acid in flour is another good example. Folic acid was added to reduce neural tube defects, and it's added into a lot of flour. So if you go and buy organic bread or organic flour, it's not going to be there, but conventional stuff, it's pretty much always in there, and lots of other like pre-made biscuit products. It's in things like Vegemite. It's in a lot. Folic acid's in a lot of pre-made food. Actually, yeah, if you're buying anything from the supermarket, chances are there's folic acid in it. And folic acid and folate get used interchangeably, which is really tricky because they're absolutely not the same. Folate's needed for the methylation cycle in our body, which happens in all of our cells. And if you interrupt methylation, basically you have metabolic and genetic problems, all kinds of issues. And people are just eating folic acid every day, and it could be a major contributor to disease. It is known to cause neurological issues, gut issues. It reduces zinc, it reduces B12 uptake. It can cause cancerous tumors. This was kind of clear in, I'll link some papers in 1970, 1996. It's crazy that it's in the public system. Yeah, so I avoid folic acid like the plague. Folate from food, it's in ubiquitous in lots of whole foods, and it's in organ meats and a lot of the whole food organ supplements. That's the best way to supplement it if you're going to supplement it. But yeah, I think we can get folate from food. And if you're pregnant and you feel like you need a bit of extra folate, and like I said, there's whole food supplements that you can get it from. But I noticed even in the literature, that scientific literature, that people interchange folate and folic acid. And yeah, like I said, it's crazy. It's real. I think it's sneaky to use them interchangeably. Beta carotene and vitamin A also get used interchangeably. They're not the same. And beta carotene in a supplemental lab-made form, not from carrots, but from lab-made beta carotene, can be really dangerous, especially to anyone that's smoked ever. Even if you've had one cigarette in your life, the chances of getting cancer after taking beta carotene goes up a lot, and lung cancer. And it is used as fortification. It's not in everything like folic acid is a public health measure, but it can be used as a fortification, can be used as a preservative, and it can be used as a coloring agent. And I think that's pretty crazy considering the health risk that it's added. So, the moral of this story is make as much food yourself as possible. And if you're buying anything pre-made, it should just have the ingredients of food: carrots, apples, flour, salt, olive oil. If it starts to have scientific chemical nomenclature names, yeah, put it back on the shelf. Iodine is another one. It was introduced to reduce goiter, so thyroid goiter, the big lump that you can get on the neck from a damaged thyroid. Iodine's needed for thyroid function, but too much or too little can knock it out. And even though goiter went down when they introduced iodine into salt, iodized salt, Hashimoto's thyroiditis actually went up. So even though it's solving some problems, it's knocking out other problems with the thyroid. Iodine in that form, I don't think is a good idea. Iodine from food, yes. Iodine from whole food supplements, yes. But yeah, the problem is that some people are getting too much iodine because they're using iodized salt, and I just recommend staying away from that. Celtic sea salt or a good lake salt is the way to go. Anything that's got added iodine to it stay away from it. Most natural salts should have a certain amount of iodine, natural iodine in it, and that's great. That definitely supports thyroid function. Yeah, so I think that's all I needed to say about that. And I talked a bit about whole food supplements, but we'll go over some of them. I'll do a post. I'll put it in the post section of YouTube. It might go on my website, and it's definitely going on Instagram. A bit of a whole food supplement cheat sheet. So like I said, if you want to take magnesium, take it in a spray, or you can take natural liquid magnesium that is bitten. I like Ancient Lakes. I forgot to talk about fish oil before, omega-3s. There's some plant foods that can get omega-3s from, but it's not so easy. And EPA, omega-3s from that are lab made, EPA and DHA, they do have some side effects, and they can be inflammatory. I actually did an article on that. Go check it out. It's on my website, on why supplementing with cod liver oil is the way to go rather than taking a fish oil. And taking cod liver oil also has vitamin D in it, which taking vitamin D, synthetic vitamin D, can be really toxic. If you need to supplement, then always go with the cod liver oil. I sell a fermented one as well, which has vitamin A and K in it as well from the fermentation process. Pearl powder for calcium, and also has iron and magnesium. Oysters for powdered oyster supplements, for zinc, selenium, iodine, B12, manganese. Beef heart. So the beef organs, Chinese medicine used organs. So say if you had issues with your heart, you would have beef organ. Interestingly, a lot of one of the supplements that are often prescribed for cardiac heart health is CoQ10, and the largest concentration of CoQ10 is in the heart. So it kind of, the nutritional component correlates with what Chinese medicine was saying. So yeah, definitely if there's any heart issues, beef heart supplements are the way to go. They also have CoQ10, like I said, folate, amino acids like taurine, B12, B3. The best way to take iron is liver and spleen capsules. Yeah, like I said, it was a massive hurdle for me to do that. I don't take it all the time, but when I feel like I'm deficient in iron, that's what I'll take. Also has vitamin A, copper, folate, B12, and beef kidney is really good for selenium, folate, copper, vitamin A. Vitamin C, if I want to take vitamin C, I go for a herbal tea that I make, Sunshine C tea, and it's got elderberry, hibiscus. Both elderberry and hibiscus you can take, you can drink them as tea on their own. I'd make a mix, obviously, but yeah, you can, both of those two things on their own are really high in vitamin C, and there's other berries and things out there. But that's my go-to. It's also got other things with bioflavonoids in the tea. I put orange peel, orange segments, and lemon peel, because they have the bioflavonoids that help uptake the rest of the vitamin C. Fulvic acid is unreal for a multi-mineral. It's got like 70 something trace minerals in there, and it's the best way to remineralize, in my opinion. Pine needle oil is also really good for beta carotenes and vitamin C and chlorophyll. And yeah, I'm sure there's lots of others out there, but that's just some of the ones that I lean on. I think they're great products, so I sell them and I prescribe them. I hope this has given some of you a little bit of a window into why I'm always crapping on about whole food supplements over lab made ones. Again, you may get a little bit of ease from taking a lab made supplements, but it's not going to be long term. Unfortunately, nature is always the way to go. I have a workshop called the Aligned Diet, and I go into fortification in that workshop, and it's a really good one if you want to get your head around how to kind of construct your diet in a way that is aligned. It's not a diet so much, it's a way to live that helps with vitality and gets rid of the crazy diet dogma, because everyone's got an opinion on what the best diet is, but the truth is that it's up to the individual, it's up to where you live, it's up to the seasons, what your demands are at that point in your life. There's so many different variables, but there are a few kind of ground rules that everyone can apply to have a diet that is going to keep you healthy across your lifespan. And that's what the Aligned Diet is all about. So check that one out. Thanks for listening, and until next time.